All right. I want to say mine is pretty similar to Daniel's, and I think a lot of us coming into experience this quite a bit, just having our ego kind of destroyed and recognizing that it's all kind of pointless, right? At one point you realize that the foundation you try to build for yourself doesn't last, and I hope that's one thing you kind of get out of this as I read mine as well. So growing up, I had a typical Christian childhood. I'd go to church every Sunday. I attended a vacation Bible school. Yeah. And I was even an avid member of my youth group. So to me, the idea of God was something that everyone around me had believed, and therefore influenced me into believing the same. During this time, many of my youth group peers had begun getting baptized and committing themselves to Christianity. When someone would get baptized, I'd always be asked if I felt ready, and all it was a simple decision, right? And well, clearly it wasn't, because it was at these moments where I would try to convince myself so hard into giving my life up, but I'd hesitate in committing myself to someone I could not see nor know everything about. My bad. I felt that my doubts could never be answered, and that I could never live up to the standards of being a Christian, and that I would just be a sheep following the herd I grew up with. Over time, I became disinterested in going to church, and even resented it because of how much time it had consumed, and how much it had consumed those around me. I felt that there were more worthwhile objectives to pursue in life, such as getting a prestigious education or a career that would give me validation. I ended up accomplishing these goals by graduating at the top of my class and coming here to Duke. I patted myself on the back and thought that these were the things I was able to easily accomplish without a God. Throughout high school, I found security in my identity through my achievements. I did look down upon those who weren't very successful academically, or those who I felt had very shallow plans. And so going into Duke, I had a subliminal fear that I would no longer feel special given how much more academically competent and accomplished the average student was. And this feeling ended up being very correct, right? Practically everyone here graduated either valedictorian, salutatorian. They're all talented, they're all athletic, and a whole list of other things. And what I felt during this period, many could have said was imposter syndrome, but it was much deeper than that. It wasn't just acknowledging that I had been outclassed. Instead I saw my entire self-perceived sense of worth crumble. Without all those accomplishments, I didn't feel like I was much, and I always felt the need to prove myself to those around me, right? And my deluded view of myself came to light and made me recognize that I was in an insurmountable rat race to the top. It was during these days that I was questioning the purpose of my life and its role in the life of others, given the temporariness of this world. Aside from this, I also saw college as an opportunity to start my life from a clean slate. I had dreamt of starting this life where I could not be judged by my history or my mistakes. A couple of months into school, I was disappointed that I had made close to no friends, and that I had no one near me to relate to. I came to understand that although I did not carry my history, I certainly carried along my character. It was a character that struggled to show empathy, and one that thrived off judgmentalism. During my second semester of my freshman year, I yearned for a group of friends to be close to. I decided to begin attending Make New after having sidelighting them for an entire semester. I began joining them for various activities like cooking, eating, baking, and board games. That's a joke. I would attend Friday Bible studies and was surprised by the profundity and intellectual nature. So the church I grew up in, I did learn a lot, but something I felt was I wasn't very stimulated by the content, and none of it resonated with me, to put it simply. And so being here in a special place where I not only heard the scriptures being explained to me in such depth, but also seeing it lived out by those around me was really meaningful to me. So the following semester, I continued attending Make New Friday nights and began listening more intently. I was fascinated for the first time by the teachings of Jesus, and he spent his life teaching others to come to the light by validating who they truly were, according to the highest moral standard. I was also captivated by this idea of giving oneself up to an enemy because of how counterintuitive yet consistent it was with the idea of loving others. Although I hadn't fully believed in it, I began to see the case for Christianity as a good moral philosophy that is centered on sacrificing oneself for others. I eventually signed up for Tim's apologetics document called TTPT that walked me through the intellectual foundations of Christianity. My friends Hanny and Nathan would meet with me every week to read and discuss a chapter, which caused me to consider answers to questions I had rarely deeply thought about. I began considering the depressing, consequential truth of there being no God that claimed my life was utterly meaningless. It's a logical consequence of atheism that I was supposed to agree with, but deep down refused to accept. Over the next few months, I began opening up my heart and considering the beautiful, immaterial essence of life that made life worth suffering for. And so I know a couple of people might believe that we're purely material beings, that we're simply an arrangement of atoms that happen to exist in this universe, but I hope you truly evaluate whether that's true or not, whether the love you feel for other people, the love that you yourself receive, all the pain that you've felt and the pain you've caused others. I plead with you to consider whether or not that's actually just an arrangement of hormones that's running through your body, because it's not, and it's very real. And so throughout CTPT, I had been asked several times why I didn't want to decide to become a Christian. And so, apart from the fear of not perfectly adhering to a Christian lifestyle, I feared losing my friends outside of the church because they would perceive me as being too different from them. I had still seen it as a list of behaviors and a set of people I was required to associate with. Over time, I learned that this was not what Christianity was. I learned that becoming a Christian meant that I had to accept myself as I am, a broken soul that fails to love others and cannot find his own heaven on earth. I'm a broken soul who needs to accept that they deserve hell for all that they've done, all the pain that they've caused others for failing to... I'm going to repeat myself again, but to love others, right? So although I'm a broken person and I deserve this hell, it was crazy to me that I'm loved enough by God to the point where he sent his son to die for me. And so during my second semester, I was once again asked if I wanted to make a decision. And after considering the irrefutable significance of the love and meaning I'd experienced in my life, I accepted Christ. And so what this means to me is I look around the people that I have closest to me, the moments I've enjoyed, all the pain that I've experienced, right? Although it's not pain, although this pain isn't as great as the pain that some others have experienced, I think that it's still been very formative in my life. And so after making my decision, there were periods where I questioned whether or not I made an honest confession, or if I'd once again been influenced by those around me. There were even some questions I had that were not fully resolved, but later realized were not relevant to the way I lived. And so CTPT, it did help me understand the foundations for Christian faith, but it hadn't been the thing that fully convinced me. I think if we're all presented with the evidence, we'll still be inclined to not believe that this is the case because we just don't want to look at ourselves the way we truly are. As time went on and I continued reading the Bible and reflecting on my own life, I became more confident in the truth that I had accepted. I continued to be amazed at how much better I understood myself and others, which in turn taught me how to be more loving. The inner peace I felt with myself and God was sufficient proof for me to know that I had made a genuine choice. In retrospect, I realized that all the problems I'd been dealing with were very selfish and shallow. But which one of us don't have those selfish and shallow problems, right? Rather than dismissing it, I recognize it as a testament to the needy and broken human condition that seeks validation, purpose, and fulfillment at any cost. I also recognize that God had always placed opportunities for me to seek and accept him. I find this to be most evident when considering that I wanted to distance myself from the church when I began college, but ended up finding a youth ministry that guided me towards salvation. The reality check I experienced when I first started school was necessary for me to understand the transience of prestige. The mere probability of having met everyone here and living through the moments I lived through gave me enough faith to believe in the divine intervention that had been taking place throughout my life. To those who have not accepted Christ, I encourage you to reflect on the situation you find yourselves in. I plead that you consider these questions. Are you truly fulfilled? Is your life utterly meaningless in the grand scheme of things? And finally, if you were to die tomorrow, how would your life be judged? I used to think that God never spoke to me directly, but all it took was an honest reflection and showing gratitude for what I had been blessed with. Thank you.
Diego, right there. Everything?
I, Diego Miranda Cullen, confess that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior.
Amen. Amen. Diego, upon your profession of faith, I now baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.